All right, you're watching the Holy Ruckus podcast, episode number 77. We got guest Leticia Ochoa Adams. Hope I said that right with the right accent, but if not, she's going to tell us herself. And she's with us. She is the creator and she's a writer for the Catholic Herald, but she's the creator of CatholicSpeakersOfColor.com, which is something that I really was interested by, and I wanted a chance. I was like, you know what? I want to get this person on before they're huge, before they're so huge that I can't get them on the podcast anymore. And so we have her. She's awesome. And she has a beautiful story and a mission that I think a lot of us can learn from. A lot of us can and yearn to strive for unity. But what does that mean? What does that look like in times like today, right? In a politically charged arena that we have here in our society. But anyway, let her talk. We're going to have her on. But thanks so much for watching, for listening to the Holy Ruckus podcast. You are at the right place. I'm here in my child's bedroom. This is our little studio, and let's go.
We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
Let's bring the ruckus.
Why were you made? I was made to be happy. And the way to be happy is to know truth. To love goodness. In other words, I am made for God.
Pero quiero lío en las dioses. Quiero que se salga afuera.
You are now listening to the Holy Ruckus podcast.
All right, what's going on? Fake applause, but say hello to Leticia Ochoa Adams. What's up, Leticia?
Nothing. How are you?
I'm chilling. I'm good. I'm better with you right now. I'm good. My kids are tucked away right now. I think they're making homemade pizzas with the wifey, so they let me come in here have a little piece. And I'm fasting right now, and maybe I shouldn't even say that, but yeah, I'm all right for having no meat in this body right now. So I'm decent. We're trying to do Exodus 90, me and Father Pat and a few other men. So trying to step our game up. What's going on with you? How are you?
I am good. I am tired. It's been a week, right? But it's good. I'm good.
That's
better than I was yesterday. I got some rest.
Same. Yeah. Yesterday, I don't know what was in the water. I don't know what they put in my water, but it was a tough day for sure. And also, grades are coming in for students. I'm a teacher, and you're having those conversations about kids getting their grades in and missing assignments for the last 2 months. So it's tough, and you sympathize, you empathize. And because it's rough being a student in COVID times, man. Kids are consistently trying to figure it out. So, but yeah, as a teacher, it's tough on our end too. But let me introduce you, all right? So, and I don't know, is that awkward when people just like shout out your resume?
I'm getting used to it. But at first it was awkward, but I am getting used to it.
There you go. Well, folks that are watching, that are listening for the first time, hit us up in the comment section. You got a question for Letty, or you just want to say hi, definitely do so. Oh, I just called you Letty. Sorry. I don't know, but that's a nickname that I've heard before. But anyway, yeah, if you have a question, comment, concern, you just want to outright just say something, go for it, man. Just knock it out. Here we are from 6 to 7, and Father Pat's going to join us. But let me introduce our guest here. Leticia is a writer for the Catholic Herald, and she's recently taken up this baton, this mission to let folks know that us Catholics, we can't get too comfortable when it comes to the race issues, and we need to step into the breach and say something, or listen and quiet and don't say anything at all. Right. And this is one of those times where we can get to listen and engage. But she is the creator of something that I thought was so cool, which was the CatholicSpeakersOfColor.com, which was a new thing. I'd never seen it. Certainly, I am one of those folks that would participate, being a Latino myself. But it's been so cool to see the type of people that are on there. You got Father Joshua Johnson, you got Gloria Purvis, one of our own contributors for the Holy Ruckus, Ogechi, that's on there as well. So when I found out about Leticia, I was like, yo, we got to get her on the pod. So she's here with the Ruckus. We're making some noise. But Leti, is there anything else I left out?
I don't think so. Nope. Not that I can think of right now.
There you go. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to rock with us. And like I said, Father Pat will be in here. He's on Irish time, so whatever that means. So he'll be here when he gets in here. But otherwise, we got some time. So let's get into it. And the first thing we do is we like to loosen things up. And one of the new, it shouldn't be new, but it's one of the games that I've never thought about. Underrated, overrated, whatever you find that is underrated or overrated, I want you to just take that mic and whatever topic I bring up. If you think it's underrated, go ahead and shout its praises. If you think it's overrated, go ahead and kill it. You know what I mean? So here we go. She's hanging out with the Holy Ruckus, and this is how we do things. Here we go. Let's go. Pope Francis.
Oh, very underrated, I think, right now. Like, he's awesome.
Why is that? Why is he underrated, though?
I love Pope Francis. He's like, the thing that I love the most about Pope Francis is that he doesn't listen to the noise. Like, he just doesn't listen to the noise. Like, very, very seldom do you hear him go, oh, the hater said this about me. Let me go and justify what I said. Like,
back real quick.
he'll clear up things. I mean, he's not perfect. He's a man, right? But he's still, he came in with a mission, and it was to listen to God and serve God. And you can clearly see that he's doing that. And it can't be easy. Because I have 3,000, 4,000 followers on Instagram, and I get negative comments all the time, and I like harp on them, So like for Pope Francis, he doesn't harp on them.
There you go. That's awesome. Wow. 4,000. I love how you said it. You're like, I have $4,000. That's just show the God. You earned them. People like
I
to
hope
so. Selena Quintanilla.
Oh my gosh. Selena is underrated by so many people.
Her.
Like,
people that might not know who Selena is.
Selena Quintanilla is a Tejano singer, and she's the queen of Tejano music, which is my culture, which is dying out. But thank goodness for Selena, because people still remember now that we have cumbias and accordions and all kinds of stuff. But I loved her. She was the first person who looked like me that was in the limelight. I loved her music. I loved her songs. And then I was devastated when she died. So I think she's underrated for the simple fact that people who know her now know about the movie, and I really am like, forget the movie, go further back than that and listen to her music and her interviews and her philosophy of life and all that stuff. So that's why I think she's underrated.
That's what's up. And she's timeless, man. Her music still hits. Her music still hits. My kids love it. And they hit the BDB bomb bomb. They do that. Yeah. It's awesome for my girls and for my boys, man. My boys always be jamming to her. So it's always good. Let's go. This might be a deep cut for some, but the Catholic nerds will get it. Karol Wojtyła. Underrated, overrated. When he used that name, underrated, overrated.
I think he's underrated for the simple fact that he did so much work for people think it's like theology of the body is just about, marriage. And it's like, it's about the human person. Everything he wrote about love and relationships is about the human person. And so that's very underrated because most people haven't even read Love and Responsibility. Like, they read someone else's interpretation of theology of the body. They don't even read his audiences, which is after, he was Pope. But they definitely don't read his before, when he was just a cardinal, But so very underrated. Most people don't read Love and Responsibility, which I think every Catholic should read Love and Responsibility before, I don't know, you get your sacraments or you get to party at the fiesta or whatever. Like, it should be like, there should be some reason that you have to read Love and Responsibility in order to be Catholic. Absolutely. 100%.
It's gotta be a prereq.
Yeah, for something.
Okay. That's what's up. And so for those that don't know, Karol Wojtyła was what he was formerly known, because then he became Pope John Paul II. But us Carol folk, we love him too. So very good, very good. Let's go. Audiobooks, underrated, overrated.
I think overrated.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I have to read a book for my own self, but I've never. Okay, this is the thing. I've never listened to an audiobook.
There you go.
So I don't know, because I have to read
There you go. Are you more of a reader though? You like the ebook version, or have to have the page turn in, hear the sound, the cover?
I prefer the hard copies. But I do ebooks because my husband can't handle like the nightlight being on, and so I have to use my iPad to read. And it's easier to carry around than carrying 20 books. It's easier to have like just take my iPad and I have all my books.
There you
so
go.
I go back and forth.
And then last one, and I'm making a guess here just from being a follower, one of the many of the 4,000 of your Instagram followers. Which if you haven't done so, folks, Leticia Ochoa Adams, go ahead and add her on IG for sure, because I love her stories and just what she brings. But I think overrated, underrated, Tupac Shakur.
Oh, underrated. Tupac Shakur. Yes, Tupac was the best. Like the thing about Tupac is that people don't understand how. This is the thing that's underrated about Tupac. His mother was amazingly smart and creative. And sought justice, and she taught her son this, and she loved her son so much. And even when they had conflict in their relationship, she came back after getting off drugs and sobering up. She came back and mended that relationship with him. That's amazing. It takes a huge amount of willpower to combat a struggle like that and then to make amends with your kid, because it's so humbling to put yourself at your child's mercy. So that's the one thing about Tupac, his love for his mother, and also how intelligent he was. People don't really realize that Tupac was killed because he tried to act like he was a gangster, and he was really just a poet, but he got caught up. And so he's a very underrated because he was a poet, he was a creative, he was a writer, he was a genius.
There you go. What song does it for you if you had to say what?
It's so hard. It's really hard to pick one, but the one that gets me every time is Dear Mama, just because that's the song that my son always dedicated to me every Mother's Day. Every single Mother's Day, he would play that song for me first thing.
That's what's up. And there you go. There you have it. We wanted to just kind of soften it up a little bit before we get into the heavy, and it's so important, guys. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and share this conversation. If you like where we're going, we're going to talk a lot about her mission and the work that she's doing, but let's start it out. In this climate and in the way things are, there's a lot of social unrest, a lot of things to touch on. And then here you go, wanting to, maybe for a long time or for a short time, start a website called CatholicSpeakersOfColor.com. Can you tell us a little bit about that and its inception and kind of what brought you to that place to want it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a really long story, but the really short version of it is that for about 10 years, I have been working in the Catholic, world, in the Catholic culture, like writing, blogging, speaking. And my entire vision of what I wanted for myself has completely shifted since my oldest son's suicide, which was in March of 2017. And but before then, I was having like little moments here and there. Like I was very involved in the pro-life movement, and I would notice the way that the conversation would be different if it was concerning a woman of color in crisis versus a white woman in crisis pregnancy. And so I began asking questions, and I began thinking about it. And this goes way back before I even became Catholic. I became Catholic in 2010. And way before then, I was very much aware of the way that Hispanics were treated differently than everyone else. And I was aware that my mother had grown up in a time where she couldn't go into certain buildings because she was Mexican.
Wow.
And so I always had questions and I always wondered. And, you know, I come from a Hispanic family in Texas, and we're pretty, my family was pretty openly anti-Black. Like, I wasn't allowed to date Black guys in high school. And I asked questions. I'm a question person anyways.
There you go.
So I pushed buttons and I asked questions and I made everyone angry and I made everyone mad, but I never understood what the deal was. And it wasn't just anti-Blackness. It was also anti-immigrant because, you know, we're Tejanos, so we've been here. There's no, like, some people are like, I'm fourth generation Texan. It's like, there is no generation for me. We've been here. We were here before the Spanish people got here. We were here. So like, there is no, so because of that, there was a lot of, we're better than people who came here from Mexico, especially if they came here illegally.
Wow.
And so I had questions about that too, because it's like we're all wearing cowboy hats, right? Because if you put like a redneck, a Tejano, and a Mexican standing next to each other in Texas, they all have cowboy hats, they all have boots, they all have belt buckles. And I'm like, I don't understand why any of you think you're better than the other one. You know, like, it never made any sense to me. And so then when I became Catholic, I kind of felt as if I had to, in my conversion, to change my life, to become Catholic, to believe the things that the church taught, which I did 100% come in full on Catholic, pro-life, pro-marriage, all of it, right? So I assumed, like, okay, well, then I have to become a Republican, even though that went against,
right?
even though that went against everything.
Is that right? To be Catholic, you got to become Republican. Is that right? Is that the truth?
Oh gosh.
People say
what's that? I shall. I'll be right there.
Put him on the side. But I mean, you have to realize, like, at the time, I was not only becoming Catholic, I was living in the suburbs for the first time. Like, I lived in the hood. Like, so that's was a huge change, a culture shock to me, was living in the suburbs, going to church regularly. Then I became Catholic. So I just assumed, like, okay, well, like, then Republican comes along with that. And there was a lot of good things that I learned from, there was a lot of good things. I learned a lot about politics. You know, I had conversations with Governor Rick Perry at one point. Like, so there was a lot of good benefits to that, but I could never, like, shut up that little voice in the back of my head that was like, okay, but what about immigration? Like, when you're sitting at a pro-life banquet, what about access to education? What about immigration? And this is during the Obama years, right? When Catholics were like, Obama couldn't do anything right, but yet they still weren't talking about the children in cages. And I couldn't really get past that. Like I said, I'm a questions person, so I kept asking questions. And then one particular situation came up where I was helping a Hispanic woman who was in a crisis pregnancy. And the people that I was, you know, trying to help her, who were also trying to help her with me, kept pushing for her to place for adoption. And I kept asking, like, why do y'all expect her to place for adoption? And someone flat out clearly said to me, like, people like that can't raise kids. And as someone who got pregnant with my first child when I was 16 years old and was told to abort my child because I was not going to be able to raise him, I just saw the commonality in that phrase. You know what I mean? And what was that? So fast forward to my oldest son passing away by suicide. And I started looking into, because I was like, what happened? Like, what is the deal? Like, what? So then I started learning about trauma, then generational trauma, then trauma caused by poverty, because we were poor the whole time he was growing up, and the stresses that causes, right? And so little by little, I started like really learning, which I already had known. I already knew the history of racism in this country, but I didn't really connect it to trauma, like generational trauma or the issue with generational poverty. And And so I just kind of started reading more and more about all of that stuff. And it just felt to me as if things were clicking. But while that was happening, I was realizing that there are, there was like maybe 3 Black Catholics that I knew of: Gloria Purvis, Father Josh, and Chica. And so it's like, where is everyone? There obviously has to be a space somewhere, right? So I started asking that question. And then the summer happens. I think it started with Ahmaud Arbery, probably, was killed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was killed. And that hit really hard for me because he was the same age as Anthony, my oldest son. And I just kept thinking of his mother. So then I reached out to Gloria Purvis, and I just kind of had this conversation. And so then, then George Floyd happened, and it kept happening. Right. And so, all of this time I'm thinking like trauma and poverty and access to resources. And I kept asking people, hey, you're going to have this conference, why don't you hire Catholics of color, like hire Black Catholics to speak at your conferences? And I heard from multiple different people, we don't know any.
Say that.
Yeah.
Who did you ask?
Lots of people.
Sorry, you don't want to put them out there. No, don't.
Yeah.
Don't put them out there.
So I kept thinking like, okay, but what about Gloria? And anyway, and so I kept hearing this, and I'm gonna, like, to be honest with you,
sure,
I know the look, the smile. I grew up in rural Texas. Like, I know the smile of white women who are like, oh, we just don't know any. And it's like, yeah. And behind all that is just, there's so much else going on. Not maliciousness necessarily, but also just, in Catholic speaking world, it is who you know, who knows you, who knows your name, how many followers you have, it's a bunch of things, to make it, quote unquote, in the Catholic speaking world. And then there's that problem of like people wanting to make it, and it shouldn't be about that whatsoever. It should be about telling your story, telling the truth, telling the story of what God's doing in your life. And so anyways, I kept asking, kept getting the same smile and nod. And then I fell asleep one night. I was just very angry, and I just went to sleep, and I just told God how I felt about it all. And it was very overwhelming, and there was no hope. Like, I remember saying, like, there's just no hope and there's nothing anyone can do. And I fell asleep. And then like at 3 a.m, I woke up, and this thought of, why don't you make a list of Catholics of color? And I was like, I don't want to make a list. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm really trying to go back to sleep.
It'd be a short list, probably.
Yeah. And then and I knew it was God, because 1, he always wakes me up at 3 a.m. for some reason. I don't think he knows what daytime is. And 2, I think it's the only time I'm quiet enough for him to talk to me. But I also knew it was God because it's just persistent. Like, it's this thing. So all day long, I just kept hearing in my head, like, why don't you just make a list? It could just be an Excel spreadsheet. It won't be that big of a deal. Just start asking around. And so I just posted on Instagram. It was like, I thought it was going to be a real simple thing. Like, hey, if you're a Catholic of color and you're a speaker or a writer, just send me your information, and I'll make a list and I'll pass it around to people who are looking for speakers. And I got like 27 names in the first, 4 or 5 hours. It was crazy. Wow. And it was also hard because some people didn't have experience speaking, and I didn't want to throw them in the lion's den. So I told them, like, start writing, get out there, start an Instagram, stuff like that, so that and stuff. And then I can help you later on try to figure out how to get into the speaking. So that kind of took out some people, and I hate doing that. I suck at leading anything. that's another reason why I know it's God, because I don't have the energy. I'm a very lazy person. I just want to figure out what to watch on Netflix. I'm not trying to lead a movement or anything.
Oh Lord, you're telling the story.
I just want to lay on the couch. But yeah, so then God was like, well, how about if we do a website? And I was like, I need money, I need a web designer, and blah blah blah. And then in the next 3 days, someone, Femme Catholic, Sam from Femme Catholic, offered to pay the fees. And then she put out some requests for a web designer, and a web designer showed up and donated her time and her talents. And so then it just took off. Like, when I try to do things, if it's just me, it doesn't work. I don't know how to do anything. I have a 10th grade education. I have no money ever. God keeps me broke, because if I had money, I would be a horrible person. And so that's always my clear sign that it's God, because things just fall into place and they're very easy. And so I started talking to Father Josh and Gloria about it, and it all just kind of came together. I got everyone's headshots and their bios, and it turned into this thing, and it's beautiful. And what I love the most is when I get emails from people who are on that website, and they say when things get hard or overwhelming, they just scroll the website and they feel hope. Like, they're like, I'm not alone. And that's how a lot of us feel in this climate right now, because it's hard being Catholic already. I mean, being Catholic, I tell people this all the time. If I didn't know God existed, I would just not be Catholic. Like, it's very difficult to hold that line and to keep that faith.
I was going to ask that, because I was like, when you do notice and you see the stares, or you see the kind of the smile, like from others, or what kind of keeps you there? Like, why be Catholic in especially Catholic in America, where you're seeing this disparity between, Catholic speakers who are white and then everybody else. And so you see the lack, but what keeps you there? Because I'm guessing because you believe it's true, right? What Catholicism shares and shows you, like, what's that like?
I believe it's true, because every time I try to walk away, it gets me again. Like, there's just for instance, yesterday I was, there's lots of talk right now about like unity and peace and all this and that. And I was just thinking in my head, I was just like, yeah, I mean, and someone brought up St. Paul. Like, St. Paul persecuted the Christians, and then he became, St. Paul, and he wrote all the books of all these books in the New Testament. And I'm like, man, you're skipping a whole entire piece of that story, where he was in prison and they were like, nah, you can't come over here because you were killing us. And I mean, he walked around by himself for a very long time. That's why he got along with the pagans, because all he did was preach the gospel to the pagans by himself for a minute, because the Christians were like, negative, you're not coming over here. So I was just ranting to God. Like, literally, it wasn't a prayer, it wasn't a conversation. I was just ranting. And then I'm rage cleaning at the same time. And under the microwave was I found a medal of St. Paul, like, under the microwave. And I was like, seriously? And that kind of relationship with God, where he makes me laugh, where he just makes, he wakes me up at 3 a.m. talking about, hey, why don't you make this website? Or, that relationship, I want everyone to have it, because God is the funniest person I've ever met. Like, he's so funny, and his sense of humor, I just want everyone to know about it. Like, have that relationship with the creator of the universe, who takes time out of his creating the universe to make a joke to you,
There you go. Father Pat, what do you got? You're jumping in here kind of cold. My bad.
Little bit, but I'm actually, I'm warming up as
there you go.
taking it in. Sister Leticia, thanks for, saying yes, I guess, or at least laughing with the Lord. Like, I hope he's not, you don't ever feel like he's laughing at you, but I'll be honest, like, there are definitely times where I feel like he's laughing at me. And maybe sometimes I'm trying to, like, I'm leaning into it. Like, I'm definitely, like, bringing it on myself and, like, inviting it, because let's be honest, work in progress, But so would you say, like, has it been like well received? What kind of reception have you encountered? Have you experienced any pushback? I perished the thought, but I do know I do know my church, well enough, I think. So tell me about that. Like, how's it been, since its inception?
Overwhelmingly, it's been a positive. But I think this is the thing. I think that racism in 2021 looks completely different than racism has ever looked in the history of our country. And there's so many reasons for that. And I call it polite racism, where people are not being malicious. Like, they're not KKK members, they're not wearing hoods, they're not burning crosses in people's front yards, but it's just the little things. Like, a lot of people have asked, how are you vetting these speakers? And I'm like, I'm asking them for a letter of good standing and putting it on the website if they have it. And if they don't, then it's not on their name. And then you get to vet them the same as you vet all your speakers. Right. We're not asking for special treatment. You gotta do your due
diligence.
Yeah, exactly. You can look at their website, and if there's something that you don't necessarily like, well, then there's however many other speakers on that list, right? So that's one thing. And then another thing is how is this different than racism? And I think that there's a misconception, or not a misconception, but a misunderstanding of the difference between equity and equality. I think we've raised a level of understanding equality, right? Where we're all the same, we're all treated the same, we ought to be all treated the same, justice for everybody. But we haven't reached the level of understanding of equity, which means that certain people have gotten a head start. And that's the simplest way I can put it. So some people have gotten a head start. So the best example that I can come up with is the Black Wall Street. So there was a community of Black people in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were highly successful business people. They were homeowners. They were living their life. And then they were killed. And so they were killed terribly, tragically, horribly by racists, by white supremacists who were not okay with seeing Black people succeed. And so while that's a tragic story, the logistic part of that is that entire community had to rebuild. But the white community who killed them kept going forward. Like, they didn't have to rebuild. You know what I'm saying? So while they're spending time rebuilding, the white community is going forward, progressing further ahead. And so that's the best example I can think of, but that happened in so many other areas for many other reasons, to Black families in particular, but also to Indigenous families and to Hispanic families all over who didn't have access for generations to the same resources that white Americans had access to. You can talk about vets and how, after certain wars that white vets were able to purchase homes. And while Black veterans had the same benefit, they weren't allowed to purchase homes because people didn't sell homes to Black people. So all of those things create this gap between two different groups of people. And equity means having to give up some things in order for people to catch up, I guess, is the easiest way for me to say it. So the Catholic Speakers of Color website serves as an equitable resource that says, here's groups of Catholics of color that you can hire for your events so that you don't have to go looking all over Instagram, all over whatever. So I'm making it easier for event planners to be able to find us. And it also creates a space that we don't have anywhere else to be able to support one another, to lean on one another, to help each other with our faith, because only another Catholic of color can understand what it's like when you see priests or bishops saying things that are harmful and hurtful, or another great example is is this harmful or hurtful? Like, this person came into my DMs and said X, Y, and Z, and my feelings are hurt and I'm angry. Is this an actual reason to be angry, or am I being sensitive right now? Only another Catholic in those shoes can understand that. It's the same with Catholics and and Protestants, right? We're all Christians, but you can't go necessarily to a Protestant brother or sister and ask them about confession, because
Right.
it's
Or Mary.
or Mary, right? Exactly. Like there's just two different perspectives there.
I think that's so huge what you're saying, because one of the things, like I kind of put it like there's a difference between like representation in the name of like diversity, but then there's also having a seat at the table and being a part of fixing a problem or addressing an issue or evangelizing, right? So many times, at least when I was going to a little Catholic college that no one's ever heard of up in Ohio somewhere, it was I've been in that place where it didn't look like racism, right? But again, I'm not having I grew up in a multicultural community and in the public school system where we're all together, whites, blacks, Asians, like it didn't matter,
Yeah.
However, but going to a different private university, right, that was all Catholic, I was one of nine. Latinos there. And sure enough, when it was time to take pictures or for the magazine,
why don't you come out front?
It was totally that. They had their arm around me and everything and had some solo shots. And it was, and God knows where those pictures are now. I'm sure that they've timed out, in terms of online, but they're out there somewhere.
That's a push-pull too, right? Because like it nobody likes tokenism, and nobody likes, being like singled out as like the here is our representation. But at the same time, like, it's gotta feel weird. I mean, I can only guess here, obviously, but
we're gonna get to you too, Father, because you got it in a different way too, being at your parish.
That's true. I'm kind of I'm definitely like the minority of my parish, but I guess like you want other people to see like that, oh my gosh, that's a good option for me, like at that institution, or like to Leticia's point, like, holy cow, there's way more speaker options than I thought, like, or quite frankly, even the people, like you were saying, who might use just that scroll through as like, a hopeful, encouragement, who then may also experience the seed being planted in them by the Spirit. Like, well, hold on, that's an option for me. Like I could go there, or I could do that. Like I think like maybe I have something to offer, like if they're telling their stories, like, well, why am I not telling mine, or like, why do I only want to tell it here or there, and I guess I'm very curious about, because surely you've got like, all kinds of people, in your network, and all kinds of friends amongst just the normal Catholic speaker circuit and the Catholic world, which is like, the word is broad and the word is universal, but we all know different, right? We all know that like when you get to those events, like it's tiny. It feels very small church. It feels very like homey. You see all your peeps there, and like, it's just a beautiful reunion. But like plenty of those supporters and friends have got to be white Catholic speakers. So like tell me about their support and what they're encouraging you by.
I really, man, I can't say enough about my white Catholic friends. They are awesome. Katie Prajong McGrady is one of my, I don't know, like she's in my text messages all the time, just like keep going, keep doing it, and they also keep me, they keep me straight, because the scariest thing, and this is what I tell everyone who comes to me about like, how do I become a speaker and how do I become a writer? And I tell everyone, like, you have to stick to the gospel. It was the scariest thing is that you can quickly, and I mean quickly, get so full of yourself and just run with it and just become successful and just like make some money. And I know everyone says that they don't make money. I did speaking for 1 month and I took my family to the beach. Like, it wasn't a major vacation, but it was
Right.
for
It was a vacation.
yeah. And for someone who grew up in the poverty that
Practicality.
I grew up in and the poverty that my kids grew up in, I mean, they were in tears when we walked into our Airbnb, you know, like they had never experienced that. They got snacks for the first time in their life. 2020 was the year of snacks, and they were amazed at having snack foods. But so it's very easy to get lost in the popularity and to get lost in the all of this and that. So, or in the name, like Katie has met the Pope, you know. And Jen Fulweiler is a good friend of mine, and she's Jen Fulweiler, like she's met Jen Fulweiler, and stuff like that. So they're very encouraging to me, and I am grateful for all of them. And so, and I always, like, this is the thing too. I think that people tend to, there's just so much there, but people tend to think that if I or anyone else is speaking out about racism and white supremacy, that we somehow don't like white people. And that's just not the truth. I gave birth
right here, right now.
I
love
yeah.
white people.
Exactly. My husband's white. He's a redneck. He's not just white. He's like a straight up country boy. Yes. And I have 3 half white children. So I make white people. I don't just love them. Like, you know.
There you go.
And also, like, I don't know when we're going to find the language for this, but I really want to get away from the language of white and non-white, because all of us are, you know, unless you're indigenous, which means then you're indigenous, you come from somewhere. You didn't come from the country called white. Like, that's a concept that we made in this country specifically to oppress and keep people out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there was a time when Irish people weren't white or German people weren't white. And so, like, we really just have to grapple with our history. And as Catholics, first of all, we are a historical church. History is Catholic. Like, literally, history is Catholic. I think we have the space and the capacity to be able to deal with our history, and also for the reconciliation, because as Catholics, we understand all the steps of reconciliation. There's examination of conscience, there's contrition, there's confession, penance, and reconciliation. And that is the way to reconcile with God. That's the way we reconcile with one another. And I think that is the absolute roadmap for racial reconciliation, where we all understand that we have a history in where we're at in this country right now, and that we all have all of us have a responsibility to look within ourselves and work on the parts of us that are conditioned for bias and prejudice and racism, and work on those things, and to be honest and have honest dialogue with one another. This isn't a political issue any more than abortion's a political issue. It is a issue of dignity of the human person, and that is 100% Catholic. And God's given us everything that we need to be able to lead the way to change things, and then we can be the country that we say we are. That's the thing. Another thing that I think people think that I hate America, and like, I'm a Texan, so obviously I love Texas more. But
you love Texas first, yeah. Yeah, we know this about Texas.
It's the Vatican, Texas, and then the USA for me. But, you know.
Wow, that's probably even by Texas standards, that's like, you know, such a strange comp.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I love it. I gotta ask this question, and I'm not sure how, because like it's rolling around in my head and I can't seem to pull it out. So here comes some verbal vomit. But so, you know, I know people who will take a look at your website. We'll look at CatholicSpeakersOfColor.com, and hopefully, because of, you know, this episode, and they'll say, wow, I'm glad that exists. That's so great. That'll really help, like, Latino parishes or, Black parishes like my own, like find speakers for their revivals or for their parish missions and so like what I'm thinking is that's not unrelated to what you were just saying about like at what point will we point out the very silly arbitrary designation of white non-white that at predominantly white suburban parishes, a great option for your parish mission in that setting is Dr. Ansel.
Yes.
Like why not? Like why should that be limited to just a certain audience? Like because like there's the expectation that like the appeal might be disparate, but like what? So here's the question. I think I'm getting there. Like the question is like, is there a desire of your heart to use this platform as a way to plant that seed or like inspire that move? Because I can definitely imagine some parishes saying like, we should do this. We should absolutely do this. But there's so many more that I think will just say like, well, I think we're just going to stick with our what we know works, and we're going to get like, one of the whitest Dominicans you've ever seen, and I love me some Dominican priests, like,
Absolutely.
So where's your heart on that?
So my thing is that I really do want to get past the, Catholics of color and then the white Catholics. Like I do want to get past that. And I want to get to a place where we're actually Catholic. Like Catholic is universal. That means we have a multitude of stories. We have a multitude of testimonies. We have a multitude of personalities. I don't just want outside diversity. I want inner diversity. Like we are some of the greatest thinkers in history. Catholics, like you think of Aquinas, you think of the Dominicans, the Franciscans, like the scientists. We have philosophy, sociology, theology. Like we are so intelligent. Our faith is a faith of intelligence because intelligence is the gift of God for us to know and love and serve him. Amen. And I want to get back, honestly, I want to get past the racism stuff so that we can get back to that, back to talking, back to intelligence, back to studying and knowing God and being people of faith who attract other people. Because I don't know if anyone's reading the room, but people are not attracted to our church right now. Like I meet people in RCIA and I am so in love with this church and I'm so in love with the Eucharist and I love being in a relationship with God. And I still ask everyone in RCIA right now, like, what are you thinking? Like, how did you end up here?
Crazy.
2021 has to be the craziest year to come into the church, but there's a reason. And we can attract more people, and not just for numbers, not just for, like, oh, we're beating the Protestants, but like, because we are holy, and that is the goal. And I think to me, an obstacle of that goal is 1, racism, 2, politics, like making things political that aren't political. It is not political to feed the hungry. Jesus Christ himself told us to feed the hungry and that our souls would be judged on whether or not we did what he said. It's very simple. That is not socialism. That is not a political talking point. I don't know why anyone thinks that kids in cages is a political point. Like, it's very simple to me. A 4-month-old baby shouldn't be in a cage being taken care of by a nine-year-old he doesn't know or isn't related to. No matter what their parents did, and so to me, I just want to get past all of that and get to the gospel where we are Catholics in this world who are doing what Christ has called us to do, which is to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the prisoner, and love one another.
And that's the call, the universal call for all of us, right?
Yeah.
But yet here we are, and we have to go through this. We have to have these conversations, though. That's the thing. We can't just fast forward because we know how it ends. We have to get to this place because I believe that we're losing souls over this, or
Absolutely.
right? And or we're ignoring other souls, and that's the idea. And so, I, as a former youth minister, as a Catholic school teacher right now, to hear this and to see what you're doing, and I call it a mission. I call it because that's it's a whole mission, right? To do what you're doing, to try to highlight speakers of color who are trying to evangelize the world, not just their base, not just their, all the Africans, not all the Filipinos or whatever, but I've seen it and working in the church for 7 years, I've seen it. And so as an educator, like, thank you, because that's just going to bring out more, because it's so hard. It's so hard to find speakers that are on tape in good quality, right? That I can put out there and find and say, hey, look at this. I remember the first time I showed my kids Dr. Ansel Augustine, right? Who is now over in the ADW in the Archdiocese of Washington, thankfully. But when I showed him the video when he was over in New Orleans, Louisiana, and talking about Black Catholicism, and my school, St. Vincent Pallotti in Laurel, Maryland, is right there by Baltimore, all 90% Black, and all my kids would say, "Why is Catholicism so white? I mean, you're cool, Mr. Moldies, you're cool, but it's so white. Like, what?" And I'm like, that couldn't be further from the truth, because of what we have in the deposit of faith, but also universally, like worldwide. And so I'm all down for your mission, because we just don't have enough of it, and it's not enough. But there are some honest questions that come up about this, and one that I've already shared with you, Leticia. So I wanted to kind of share. Someone had reached out with a question via text, and if you have a question about maybe racism in the Catholic Church or more of Leticia's mission, please go ahead and put that in the comments here. We're going to get to all of them, but here, as much as we can here, as we're nearing the latter half of our podcast here. So one of them was, my honest question for Leticia, is, how can we say we want to promote unity in the church if we have a ministry specifically focused on speakers of color? Are speakers of color not allowed to be listed on other Catholic speaker websites? If so, that's evil, but I don't think that's the case. It seems to me that the issue of race becomes about further division rather than about equality, unity with movements like this. So charitably, of course, like, let's just knock it out. Let's just call it what it is. And I don't know. What do you think, Letty?
Okay, so I'm going to take it in two parts. I'm going to take one, the unity part, and then two, whether or not Catholics of color get to be on speakers list. So first, the unity part. I don't think anyone thinks that having Dominicans and Franciscans adds to the division in the world. They both have.
They thought it at one point.
Yeah, and they fought, right? But like, now I kind of think of it like, we're all different. We all have different gifts. We have different things to offer to the world. And so it's not division. It is actually making a space for a specific group of people who are, for whatever reason, not seen and heard frequently. And two, unity doesn't mean that we kumbaya with everyone. Like, there was a time, John chapter 6, where Jesus said some crazy stuff and people left. And Jesus didn't chase them down. Instead, he looked at his disciples and said, "Are you leaving too? Because I'm going to go." And so sometimes people think that unity means that we all have to not have hard conversations and not deal with hard things, but we do. And as Catholics, we deal with the hard things all the time. Once a month, we all hopefully sit in a confession line and get ready to go do the hard thing, which is to confess our sins so that we can come back into unity. There are action steps that need to be taken for unity. And one of those is making a space for Catholics of color in the speaking world. Now, they're not necessarily kept off those other speaking lists maliciously, But there's a lot of things that go onto getting into those speaking lists. And sometimes it is that you have to think the right things or say the right things or push the right narrative or have an agenda.
A little virtue signaling.
Yeah. And I don't really know what the goal of that is. I honestly don't, because I don't even worry about it. Like, I stay in my lane. I know what God's asked me to do. And I ask everyone to pray for me. And while you're praying for me, if you have a problem with my website, tell God. He knows my number. He can let me know if I'm doing it wrong. But really, it's just making a space where I saw it needed to be made for people that I saw weren't, like Dr. Ansel. Like, I think he should be on every conference from here on out ever. Like, book him up, morning to night. That's what I think. Father Josh, I know he has a parish to run, but I also feel like he should be on everything. Gloria Purvis, like everything. And so to me, that it's making space. It's not taking away space.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ask her that second question about other speakers guilds or other websites that have universally all these speakers? And
I really don't know what they're. I feel personally, I tried to get on one and I just didn't fit the narrative, and that's fine because they all have their own mission, and I am not one to say what is or isn't their mission. Sure. But I know that speaking in the Catholic world is about who you know and what you know. And so I created a website that has some pretty big names on it, and hopefully it'll help everyone else on there.
And that kind of, and then I'll let you react, Pat, as well. But in that kind of show, like, you'll know it by its fruits. I mean, if this grassroots movement is not of the Lord, then it's not going to catch fire, and it's definitely not going to catch the attention of well-known national speakers like Father Josh is becoming now. Shout out Father Josh. He's amazing. And he already has his ducats. I mean, he's already booked up in terms of Ascension Presents and what they do. And so, and Dr. Ansel's getting well known, and Gloria Purvis until recently was killing it on EWTN. And that's another conversation. But honestly, the fact that they vibe with your mission is because they also see what you see. And what I see is there is a lack. And even if it's, a small dip or a chasm, we see it. And so for that to be there, I just think it's a worthy thing, and you'll know it by its fruits. And from what you're saying, it's catching. It's catching for the folks. And so it's worth it.
I would really ask like anyone who has that question and thinks that, I really honestly really just go and read the history of this country, read the history of our church, the way people reacted to Father Tolton becoming the first African-American priest in this country way back when, and the big deal that caused, and why he had to go do his seminary in Rome, or the reaction of white Americans when we got our first Black bishop. I mean, I really just, I think that the way forward is for everyone to hear the stories that have been kept from us. We've been sheltered from a lot of the history of this country, a lot of the history of this church. We had orders who owned slaves. I mean, there's a lot there, right? And I'm not saying for us to, rehash the past so that we can all hate one another and hate this country or whatever. I'm saying I'm saying just learn it so that you understand where people who don't look like you are coming from. When we're talking about Black Catholics and specifically, I think we have to hear their stories. We have to listen to their pain. They don't have to listen to our objections for them being in a space that we don't think like it's a big deal for them to be in. But we do have to listen to them all the time about their history, about why they're here. And also, I mean, I all you have to do is look at the Catholic books. Just like look who's reading them. I mean, who's writing them, and you can see the lack of Black Catholics telling their stories.
You're talking about history. I teach church history, and we only get one side of the story, and it sucks. But
like especially on one thing we talked about here at St. Joe's is that the church was very African, The church is extremely African, especially in its earliest days, like the apostolic times. Like, there was every bit as much like robust, like church tradition coming out of Egypt, and what was once Carthage, like the Roman Empire. Ever heard of a Saint Augustine? Like that's an African thing, So, yeah, and the history is difficult to grasp without that. I think that extra impetus, like so for. I think most of us we hit a point in our life where we're like, who am I, or like where am I coming from, like what's my deal, like who are my people, and we naturally reach for the things that like are closest to home, and that like resonate most deeply with like who our grandparents and our parents told us, like this is where you're from, like this is who your people are. I guess the trick is to then like somehow tap into that innate like desire and quest to like learn more about whose we are, and then include in that like some big tentism, some big netism that like, well, it should also be interesting to me to like know like since it is so important to me that I am Catholic, to know like my Catholic family's history, like
Yeah.
this is my this is my brother, my sister Catholic, and this is where this is part of her story, this is part of his like where he comes from, and to have to, I guess, to stoke that flame, because that's all you're really describing to me, I think, is like that there's plenty of room, to reference a gospel song, a hit that is a favorite over here. But I guess yeah, like every speaker should have that freedom to appeal to multiple audiences, and to use multiple platforms as well to like get their name out there, and generate interest, but also just opportunities to, as you put it, tell their story, share the word that the Lord has put on their hearts, and on their lips. But that's the problem, I think, because we don't understand. We do not understand big tent, big, like big net kind of themes of theology. We really don't even like thoroughly grasp where plurality is reflected in our own history, I guess, and that's probably at the forefront of that. You'd like to see the shepherds, being the tip of the spear, and leading that charge, and like debunking myths, false conceptions. But I more and more these days, like I wonder if that's if that's what's holding us back. I think that the grassroots of having lay Catholic voices slowly swelling, slowly building, to the point where like they're unmistakable, they're unavoidable, they're easily recognizable, praise God that we have like some very, very recognizable clerical voices, Father Josh Johnson, Father Mike Schmitz, Bishop Barron, but ultimately, I mean, I think in terms of cultural engagement, it's way more important that the biggest group of the church, and the greatest representation of the body of Christ, become the loudest proclaimers of our plurality. And I suppose that will be the way of education, which is already kind of like, I'm not trying to stir the pot here, but that's definitely not the norm. We usually wait. We're good at waiting. We're big fans of obedience, and I'm not telling anybody to be disobedient, but we're very good at like let my shepherd tell me, when to go, and then I'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, though. At the end of Mass, I mean, that's the call, right? At the end of Mass, it's like, go out into the world and show the gospel through your life. You know what I'm saying? Like we are the laity. Like, the bishop's job is to teach us the faith. Our priest's job is to give us the sacraments. Our job is to proclaim to the world by our life the gospel.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And I think we've forgotten that. Like, I think we think like, oh no, I need the bishop's permission.
We've compartmentalized it.
Again, like you're saying, I'm no one, right? But you still have a job. Like, we're, we still have a place to proclaim the gospel in the world by our lives, not by like our political stickers on our car, but like feeding the hungry, clothing the naked. I mean, I can go on and on. Like, the works of mercy are there for a reason. And so, yeah, I think this is part of that. And also another thing is that we need workers in the vineyard. There is so much work. There are so many people that are thirsting and dying, literally dying from diseases of despair, who need to hear that God loves them more than they think he does. And the more voices we can get to say that, and the more people we can get, because being a Catholic speaker is not easy. The traveling, the talking, most of us want to sit in a room and read the Summa or something. Like,
there you go.
we're not
Wait
we're
a
trying
minute.
to read Dorothy
Are you guys
Day.
nerds?
Seriously, most Catholic speakers that I know are huge nerds. Some of us are extroverts, some of us are introverts, but all across the board, we're nerds. We want to be sitting somewhere in a comfy chair reading some Dorothy Day or some Catherine of Siena or something like that. And so speaking is a hard life, but the thing is that it comes with so many joys and so much fruit, and we need as many people. I just don't understand anyone's thinking who thinks that closing people out is the way to go. It's just, there's so much work.
Totally. There's a question here. Hold on. We got one more question. As a fellow Franny, that's accurate. My experience. Related question. What is some advice for white Catholics to be better allies, but also avoid tokenism?
Right now, honestly, I think that the best way, and it's hard, right? So the best way for white Catholics to help us is to work on your own racism and talk about it. Like, I know it's hard, and I know that it can bring a lot of anger. I've seen people struggling. I've seen them trying to do the right thing, and then every once in a while they'll trip up and it turns out bad. But we're Catholic, and at the end of the day, we're called to do the hard thing. And so I really feel as if, and I'm not telling anyone what to do, but I think that right now is not the time to be radio silent. I do believe that it is the time, even if you don't want to go into details, to say, this is the book I'm reading, I'm struggling, I'm trying to figure it out. That's it. I'm not saying everyone to become an anti-racist content creator. That everyone has their own goals and missions.
The market.
Like God gives us all our place in life. But I do think that it is very imperative to because we're tired. And I mean, I am fair skinned. I'm married to a white man. I have a lot of my own privilege and a lot of my own biases that I have to work through every single day. But our Black Catholic brothers and sisters are exhausted, and they're scared. And they feel alone, and they don't feel welcome in their church, and they love Jesus. They love the Eucharist. Something I said to someone the other day is that I constantly hear white evangelists talking about how they wish people could love the Eucharist again and know that the true presence is there in the Eucharist. And I can tell you right now that every Black Catholic I've talked to in the last 6 months loves the Eucharist. They know that that is the body and blood and soul and divinity of our Lord. And so that's where it's at. If you're looking for people who understand the real presence, it's the Black Catholic community. And so I honestly feel as if what we can do is be there and not shy away from the hard conversations. Follow Black Catholics on Instagram, share their content, pay them for speaking. Like that's what I think.
Churches, please pay your folk. Please
Yeah.
have them
Right,
come out.
yeah.
Come on, Father
A
Pat.
worker is worth his daily wages. Crying out loud, it's in the
Where the duck
scripture.
is at? Father
Yeah.
Pat, let them know.
I do want to piggyback at great risk to personal self of like
Go for it, Father. But we're
any kind of
closing up. Go ahead.
white
Go for it.
I'm not trying to do that. I love what Letty just shared for us, because that fatigue is so real, and it was something that our sister, because we got to promote our own, right? You know, and she's repped on your list. Sister Ogechi like talked, you know, very openly and very honestly in some of our conversations months back about how being an ally means checking in, you know, means checking in and not assuming anything about like somebody's reaction to the headlines or what's going on and how it's hitting you, but like leaving that space, you know, to believe like, well, there might be a different reaction, or there might be a different take on this that I wouldn't be able to come up with on my own. And so being able to check in with our brothers and sisters, you know, Catholic and non-Catholic, who are representing a different, you know, cultural perspective. But I would also add that I think that sometimes there's a presumption of that because we worship differently, you know, and the liturgy becomes like one of the easily the biggest hotbed issues is like, you know, the way they're worshiping over there, like that ain't church, like whatever that is, that ain't church, like that ain't the Catholic church I know. And I hate to break this to you, but you know, it probably is. And I think where I've seen that play out is not unlike the way that sometimes when someone speaks differently than I do, it immediately comes with a rush of like, you know, boom, 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 boom. I guess I know this about them, about this person that I'm encountering. And, you know, for my own flocks, you know, population, all it takes is, you know, somebody asking you a question, you know, to be automatically thought of as, you know, whatever, you know, like different kind of education, different kind of, you know, of person here. That happens in the Catholic world, I think, because we do sometimes assume like, you know, do y'all even know, like, you know, our Catholic faith or, you know, our Catholic catechesis or whatever. I would encourage all of my, you know, all of my friends and all of my, you know, fellow Catholics from all of the beautiful parishes that I've been privileged to serve in, you know, as a seminarian, as a layperson, and now as a priest, to be always open to the possibility of the awesome gift that it is for us personally in our own faith, to share some clarity, to refine, you know, to be that refiner's fire, you know, to not like, you know, write someone off as like, you know, oh, I don't know about, you know, they don't seem to be tracking me as I'm talking about the Holy Spirit, or, you know, I'm dropping these words and I'm not sure, like I'm getting glazed faces or whatever. Like that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's always a gift. That's always a gift, because we get to say more. You know, we get to talk. Yeah. We get to talk. And no, I don't suffer from like, you know, the the lack of words. This is me Irish gift of the gab, you know, me garrulousness, you know, me flapping of the gums disease, you know. I've definitely got to scale back sometimes, but, you know, say less. But every one of those opportunities, you know, when we find somebody that may not match our expectation or our hope for, like, you know, well, they don't seem to be resonating with, you know, my understanding of the liturgy. So what? Who cares? Yeah. Like, that's, if anything, that's an awesome place to like jump off from and be like, you know, well, what do you know? Or like, what can I share? Like, you know, Is there something we can talk about, about the way that we worship that I can, learn to appreciate? Because let me tell you something. Most of the white folk I know who have been to their very first Latin mass all have the same reaction. When you go to Latin mass, everybody feels like, what is going on? I don't even know. They're singing that, and he's doing that, and do I say this part? Like, can I have a line, please? Like, that's all of us at Latin mass. But like, for crying out loud, people learn how to pray that, right? People learn how to pray that well. So like, I guess, yeah, we get to learn how to pray better.
Yeah,
because it all paints our experience differently. And one of the things as a close here, because we are running up against it, on your website, one of the things is you have categories of things that people can talk about. You're okay. Yes, you're a Catholic speaker of color, but these are universal themes that you have. You want to talk about evangelization, music, liturgy, pro-life ministry, or life issues. Like, you have the gamut of topics that are in the catechism. Like, it's very orthodox, but it's also understanding this. And this is where I want to encourage and invite and challenge some folks that might be like looking at this, like, do we need this? Well, yeah, you can find anybody to give these talks, but also you're getting how their lens, their vantage point from their particular, because for me, when I give talks, especially pro-life talks, it was painted by my Latina grandma, who took me to the, with me and my cousins, and we went to Langley Park up in, parts of Maryland, rough parts of Maryland, where we evangelized, handing out rosaries, praying with folks. Like, you can't talk about pro-life ministry, at least I can't, without talking about how my culture and my Latinoism like paints that. You're not going to get that with with everything in terms of the universal umbrella of you're just a speaker, you're just a Catholic. No. But the best Catholic speakers, right, are ones that can show it. And it doesn't have to be just of color. It can be those that are white, that are Irish, right? Like my man, Father Pat, or German, like my wife. Like, it paints how you view these universal themes. Right. Yeah. And so that's what you're bringing and highlighting is the same old themes that we know, but painted in a way that is culturally like respecting where they come from, because it's absolutely different. And that's what I want to challenge anybody that's on the fence of checking out this website for speakers virtually or in person. Check it out, because we're missing so much more beauty in the church, and it's found here, and it's collected here. Leticia has done all the work for you.
And I want to add, I don't want to take. So like, I want to add speakers. I don't want to take speakers off. I think we have an amazing group of Catholic speakers right now. I mean, everyone could probably name like 5, that everyone knows. And so in no way whatsoever am I saying don't hire these people and hire these people instead. What I'm saying is hire them all and have a diverse conference, have a different point of view. Let everyone in your audience find something that they resonate in each speaker, because if we just keep telling the same story over and over and over again, we are putting God in a box. God does amazing things. Like, look at our saints. Our saints have amazing stories, and there are Catholics among us with great stories. And I think that when we try to limit the story, we limit God, because God loves to do amazing things. He's crazy.
There you go. Father Pat, why don't you break us off a little blessing, and we'll be on our way. Leticia, thank you so much for being with us. Where can we find you? Where can we holler at you? What do we got?
You can find me Leticia O. Adams on Instagram, on Facebook, and that's my website.
There you go. And it's right here on the ticker here. And so there you go. Go ahead, Father Pat.
Amen.
Give us a little blessing here. We go forward.
Thank you so much. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Father God, Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit, cause of our laughter, of our joy, of our plurality, of our multiplicity, the many parts of your body. your sacred and holy body. We desire to bring you glory and honor through crying out loudly, loud enough to rise above the noise and the din of this world. I thank you and I praise you for a ministry that you have inspired that will allow us to add more numbers to those places, more people to go out, more missionaries inspired to speak to every single one of your children in every place at every time. Protect us as we go and bless our listenership, especially those who need to find the hope and encouragement of this conversation from this evening. The Lord bless you and keep you, his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with kindness and give you his peace. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Awesome.
Peace.
Awesome. Thanks so much again. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been rocking with the best, the Holy Ruckus podcast. Thank you so much, Leticia, for being with us. And Father Pat, better late than never, my friend. Thanks again for the blessing. I get free blessings every week. It's beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't yet already, go ahead and subscribe, follow, share the whole gamut. You know where we are, the Holy Ruckus, making the ruckus in the church for free. But in case you're feeling generous and you got some bread, you got some ducats, please prayerfully consider supporting the Holy Ruckus at our Patreon and give Shouty $3 a month. Just saying, come on now, folks. Thank you so much again. And then hang tight, Leticia and Father Pat, as we go. Hang tight. But otherwise, folks, have a great night, and we'll see you when we see you. Thanks so much.